National and State Assembly election petitions tribunal renders judgments in many states, reshaping the nation's political landscape. Inspector General of Police issues stern warning to Islamic movement in Nigeria against nationwide procession, reaffirms the group is proscribed. On the international scene, UK Parliament suspended after another Boris Johnson defeat. And in sport, Tanzania, Ethiopia reach group stage of 2020 World Cup qualifiers.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. There have been tribunal quakes around the country on Monday that will reshape the landscape of the country's houses of assembly. We'll go give you a comprehensive wrap-up to give you an idea of what it looks like as the National and State Assembly Elections Petitions Tribunal pronounced judgments across the country, upholding some and sacking others. One of the casualties of the tribunal judgments is Senator Orji Kalu, representing Abia North Senatorial District. The petitions tribunal found for PDP and nullified Kalu's election. PDP candidate Mau Ohabua has challenged Kalu's victory. Former Abia State Governor Orji Kalu is the current Senate Chief Whip. The tribunal has ordered a rerun election for the Abia North Senatorial District. Kalu says it will not lose sleep over the tribunal's judgment. Meanwhile, in Enugu State, Senator Ike Kuramadu has every reason to smile, as National and State Assembly Elections Petitions Tribunal has held that former Deputy Senate President was elected with lawful valid votes in the February elections in Enugu West Senatorial Zone. APC's Juliet Ibekwake Nwagu has challenged Kuramadu's victory, charging he was not elected by majority of lawful votes cast during the election. The tribunal disagreed. Ibeka Nwagu was formerly an aide to President Muhammadu Buhari. APC has rejected the tribunal judgment. And still on election tribunal judgments, the atmosphere in Owerri, Imo State capital, is calm as challengers and the challenged expect the ruling of the tribunal on the governorship election there. Final arguments were made on Monday by the parties that were locking horns in the legal battle over the legitimacy of the governorship election, in which Emeka Ihedioha triumphed to become governor of the state. Ihedioha's victory is being challenged by three of his opponents: Ugumba Uchenwosu of the Action Alliance, Senator Hope Uzodimma of the All Progressives Congress, and Senator Ifeanyi Ararume of the All Progressives Grand Alliance. Nwosu, who came second in the election, is charging that Ihedioha allegedly colluded with INEC officials to manipulate and inflate figures in the three Mbase local government areas of the state. A senior aide to the governor said if there is unfavorable ruling by the tribunal, the governor would proceed to the appeal court and ultimately to the Supreme Court to further press his case. There is good news for the People's Democratic Party as the National State House of Assembly Petitions Tribunal dismissed for lack of merit APC Samuel Hardware's petition challenging Taminu Musa's victory in the March election in Kashia constituency in Kaduna State. The tribunal's three-member panel unanimously dismissed the petition. It says the petition had failed to prove beyond reasonable doubt that Musa did not win the election. The tribunal said the election results presented by the Independent National Electoral Commission was presumed authentic unless proven otherwise. Musa said the mandate was divinely given by God. It said the process had worked and described the court as the hope of the common man. Meanwhile, wife of the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has also prevailed at the National State House of Assembly Petitions Tribunal in Lagos. The tribunal dismissed PDP's chief Adesumbo Onitiri's petition challenging Senator Tinubu's victory, saying it lacked merit. The tribunal said Onitiri failed to substantiate and give particulars of all allegations raised against the election of Senator Tinubu, who represents Lagos Central Senatorial constituency. And two more tribunal judgments to report. The National State Assembly Election Petitions Tribunal in Abeokuta, Ogun State capital, has nullified the election of APC's Kolakpo Korede Ogunsoya, representing Ijebu Central Federal Constituency. PDP candidate Taiwo Shote had challenged INEC's declaration of Ogunsoya as winner in the February election. The tribunal, in its judgment, upheld Shote's petition and cancelled elections in 2 units and an entire ward in the Ijebu Central Federal Constituency, which comprises 3 local government areas, including Ijebu Ode, Ijebu North East, and Odogbolu. The tribunal said INEC should not have declared Ogunsoya as winner since the margin of lead and difference between the petitioner and first respondent was fewer than 4,000, and the total number of cancelled votes was 8,800. The tribunal said the declaration was not in line with the provisions of the Electoral Act. The tribunal upheld the election of Senator Tolu Odebiyi, representing Ogun West Senatorial District, and Jimo Ojugbele, representing Ota Federal Constituency. But the tables were turned in Abakaliki, Ebonyi State capital, where the petition tribunal sacked PDP's Lazarus Ogbe, representing Iko Esa South Federal Constituency, and declared APC's Chinedu Oga as winner. The tribunal agreed and restored the votes cancelled by INEC in more than 10,000 wards. The tribunal has directed INEC to immediately issue the APC candidates their certificate of return and withdraw the one issued to the PDP candidates. For a complete list of tribunal reports across the country, visit our website annafrica.news. You will also find their stories we have been unable to accommodate on air. So we'll see you there. annafrica.news. Now to other stories. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has taken steps to preempt plans by the Islamic movement in Nigeria, the Shiites, to hold a nationwide procession today, Tuesday. The IGP says all activities of the Islamic group remain prescribed in line with the Terrorism Prevention Prescription Order notice of July the 26th. This was stated in Abuja on Monday by Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba. He said all gathering or procession by IMN members would be illegal and would be treated as a gathering in advance of terrorism. Mba said the planned procession by IMN members would be viewed as disrupting public peace, order, and security in the country. The Force PRO says the IGP has standing orders in all the states that all supervisory assistant inspectors general of police must put in place concrete measures to prevent the planned IMN procession. Mba said the IGP has appealed to parents and guardians to advise their children not to be duped into embarking on illegal and ill-motivated activities. The Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, appear to have buried the hatchet and made concessions in the rift that has existed between the two parties. Many are reading into a letter from the President of the Labour Congress, Ayuba Waba, in which he congratulated Ngige on his reappointment as Minister of Labour to mean an end to their rift. Waba said Ngige's reappointment was a testament to President Muhammadu Buhari's confidence in him. He called on the minister to direct the Ministry's affairs toward lifting Nigeria out of poverty, indigeneity, and indecent work conditions. It's ironic that the Labour Congress had warned President Buhari not to return Ngige as Minister of Labour and Employment. They accused him of some things, including deliberately delaying inaugurating the board of the National Social Insurance Trust Fund for years and for exclusion of Frank Kokori as the chairman of the board.
Coming up, African news. Ethiopia grants amnesty to thousands of prisoners in celebration of New Year based on ancient Coptic calendar. And later, international news. British Parliament suspended after another Boris Johnson defeat.
You are watching ANN.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Carrie just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Now to African stories. South Sudan's President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar have met in Juba to begin peace talks aimed at reviving an outstanding peace agreement signed a year ago and chart a way forward. Exiled opposition leader Riek Machar landed in the capital, Juba, on Monday to commence dialogue with President Salva Kiir ahead of a November the 12th deadline to form a unity government. Pictures shared on social media show a packed hall with representatives from both sides as well as a delegation from the Sudanese government. Regional negotiators say the rollout of the pact to form a transitional government is behind schedule because the two rival leaders had not met for discussions after they signed an agreement a year ago to end a 5-year civil war that has killed tens of thousands of people, forced millions from their homes, and devastated the economy. The African Union has lifted the suspension it imposed on the Sudan and has welcomed the new civilian government in the country. The Sudan had been suspended in June in response to the violent breakup of a protest site in the capital, Khartoum. During that incident, opposition medics said dozens of protesters were killed amidst a standoff between the ruling military men and civilian opposition. On Thursday, the country's new cabinet since April was formed following the ouster of former long-term President Omar al-Bashir. In a Twitter message, the AU says it was committed to supporting the reconstruction process and mobilizing the international community. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry says the country would use the occasion to reaffirm its commitment to the goals and objectives of the African Union. The ongoing xenophobic violence in South Africa is denting the nation's image and creating diplomatic nightmares with other African countries. As Yolisa Njamela reports, a coalition of many organizations has been formed to help find a solution to the xenophobic problem.
In addition to the 12 people who lost their lives following the recent xenophobic unrest, over 600 people have been arrested. During the attacks, foreign and local-owned shops were looted. A building and a truck were also torched. The looters went on a rampage in a number of areas in the Gauteng province, South Africa's economic hub. Ordinary South Africans, law enforcers and government officials have continuously condemned these attacks. Now, a coalition of over 50 organizations have also entered the fray. The People's Coalition Against Xenophobia comprises of trade union representatives, civil society organizations, community groups, and individual activists. Theirs is a call to action to stop the attacks.
Enough is enough. This has to come to an end. It's like every 4 years we find ourselves here. We find ourselves fighting this battle, and we cannot continue like this, not in our name. This cannot happen in our name as South Africans.
The organizations believe that the main targets of these attacks are working class fellow Africans.
For us, this is a working class struggle where we are seeing working classes fighting against each other and not directing the challenges at the root cause of the problem, which is the system we find ourselves operating under.
Stand united against xenophobia and gender-based violence, fighting for equal, safe and inclusive South Africa. The working class divided will never conquer. What is needed is sustained rolling mass actions, and we are committing to building a mass movement against xenophobia, sexism, racism, and all forms of prejudices dividing and oppressing the working class and poor.
This coalition will take to the streets on Saturday in protest against the attacks. The riots seem to have been quelled for now. Police officers have maintained a heavy presence in Johannesburg, looking out for any possible eruptions of xenophobic riots. Earlier on Monday, the presidency released a statement imploring the law enforcement agencies in this country to be vigilant and be firm in dealing with the perpetrators of these attacks and essentially restore law and order in this country.
As Ethiopia gets ready to celebrate New Year on Thursday, the country's state broadcaster has reported more than 7,000 prisoners will be freed. The Horn of Africa nation follows a calendar that is about 7 years behind the Gregorian calendar used in much of the rest of the world. For Ethiopia, Thursday will be the start of 2012. Attorney General Behanu Sisege says he's granting pardons to more than 1,000 inmates from Kaliti, Siwe and Shiwerobit prisons. Meanwhile, authorities in 2 other states, Amhara and Southern Nationalities and People's Region, are freeing a total of 6,600 detainees.
When we return, international news. British Parliament suspended after another Boris Johnson defeat. And later, sports. Tanzania, Ethiopia reach group stage of 2020 World Cup qualifiers.
You are watching ANN.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In international stories, it was another day, another pair of parliamentary defeats for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, but he has succeeded in his plan to suspend Britain's parliament for 5 weeks. This is Johnson's 6th straight defeat in 5 days of House of Commons business. To trigger an early election, the government needs 434 votes, 2/3 of all MPs in the 650-seat lower house of parliament, but only 293 backed the proposal. Opposition parties were united in blocking Johnson's bid to take the country to the polls after losing. After losing, Johnson told MPs once again that he was committed to taking the UK out of the EU at the end of October. Brexit has dominated political life in the United Kingdom since the 2016 referendum, which the Leavers won with 52% of the vote against 48% for Remainers. Bahamas Health Minister Dorian has confirmed Hurricane Dorian's death toll in the Bahamas has climbed to 50 on Monday, as more fatalities were reported from the storm that plowed through the island last week. Commissioner of Royal Bahamas Police Force Anthony Ferguson says 42 bodies have been found in Abaco and 8 recovered on Grand Bahama. Thousands of people remain missing and relief efforts were underway on the battered islands. Rescue workers are going door to door. U.S. Coast Guard helicopters are evacuating critically injured residents. China has warned Britain against sailing ships through disputed waters in the South China Sea, saying such a move would be hostile. It says Beijing would be forced to retaliate with military force. Speaking to the Defense Correspondents Association in London, Luo Chigong-min rejected the argument that the Royal Navy would be upholding international rules concerning freedom of navigation. The South China Sea is a vast ocean, 3 million square kilometers wide. China says it has no objection to sailing around there, but it disallows entering Chinese territorial waters within 12 nautical miles. Washington accuses Beijing of illegally building military facilities and installation on some of the islands, but China responds by labeling America as a bully and provocateur. North Korea launched at least 2 unidentified projectiles towards the sea on Tuesday after it offered to resume nuclear diplomacy with the United States. Analysts say the projectile launches and demand for new proposals were apparently aimed at pressuring the U.S. to make concessions when talk resumes between both countries. Tuesday's launches were the 8th since late July and the 1st since late August. The previous 7 launches have revealed short-range missile and rocket artillery system that experts say would potentially expand the country's ability to attack targets throughout South Korea, including U.S. military bases there. President Donald Trump called North Korea's announcement interesting. A transcript of audio recordings of late journalist Jamal Khashoggi and the Saudi hit squad that killed him inside the kingdom's consulate in Istanbul last year has been released by the Turkish Daily Sabah newspaper. The recordings obtained by Turkey's national intelligence and made public on Monday detailed the conversations between the Saudi writer and members of the 15-man hit squad moments before his assassination in October last year. Daily Sabah reviews in the last 10 minutes before Khashoggi was killed, Mutrab asked Khashoggi to leave a message for his son. The operatives then drugged the Saudi journalist. His last words before losing consciousness were, quote, "I have asthma. Do not do it, you will suffocate me." Sound of an autopsy saw dismembering the 59-year-old's body. The procedure lasted for 30 minutes. His body is yet to be recovered.
Still ahead, sports. Tanzania, Ethiopia reach group stage of 2020 World Cup qualifiers. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit. We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow the story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. In sport, Tanzania has made it to the next round of the 2022 World Cup qualifying after winning a penalties shootout over Burundi in Dar es Salaam on Sunday. Ethiopia will join Tanzania in the next phase after an away victory over Lesotho. The 14 teams who advance from this round will enter the group stage where they will join the 26 top-ranked sides in the 40-team 10-group second phase. 5 places have been reserved for Africa at the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The changes to European football planned for 2024 are likely to either be delayed or scrapped. UEFA was proposing a Champions League containing 4 groups of 8 clubs as opposed to the current 8 groups of 4. The proposals came after pressure from leagues below the Big Five, which are England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France. After months of talks, no overall consensus has been reached. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a pleasant evening.